Well, good afternoon. Well, I should still say good morning, depending where you are in the country. Members of the DamFam, it is Thursday, June 25th on today's Daily Beaver morning show. Whether it is high speed rail, whether it is celebrating Canada's cultural mosaic, whether it is nuclear energy, regardless of what it is, it seems that these days the Canadian Conservative movement's position to everything is no, no, no. So we'll look into that and, of course, talk a little bit about Team Canada at the World Cup. So grab your favorite bevy because here we go.
Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 6 and episode number. I actually am going to have to look that up today, believe it or not, kids and cubs. Uh, I think it is, I'm not sure if I noted it correctly, but I'm going to say 900. You know what? I'm not even going to try it because I think I made a typo in my episode description today. But let's just say 935, but it might be 939 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian, and of course, always be verific. Today, recording day is Thursday, June 25th, 2026, and it is a lovely day presently at the Beaver Lodge, but it is calling for rain for most of the rest of the day and the evening. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. How's your mental health doing today, kids and cubs? I am doing well. Again, having another bout of insomnia soon after having finished the last one. So I'm very tired physically. Was also yesterday. I was actually amazed that I was able to do the show yesterday at 7:30. We had a guest, so I made sure that I had to be there on time for it. But let's just say I was working on probably fewer than 2 hours sleep yesterday when I did that. So it was it was a rough day. Let's just say that staying awake during the World Cup match yesterday afternoon was a bit of a struggle. But I did. But it was a bit of a struggle. I had to keep on shifting on the couch to make sure I didn't conk out. But hey, got a bit more yesterday, got a nap also yesterday afternoon. So feeling a little better, but my eyes are burning. So probably will need another nap later on today at some point. But spirits are good, and that's what matters, right? Being in a good mood, despite how you feel, always helps you to feel better eventually. Ah, we have a lot to talk about today because, sorry, I'm getting distracted by some questions in the chat here that I do want to answer, but I'm going to stay focused today because today I'm very easily distracted and can go down a couple of rabbit holes very quickly. So a little tunnel vision today, unfortunately, because it's the only way I'm going to get through this. We have a big show today. Obviously, we did not have shows Monday and Tuesday because yours truly was out of town. And while I used to be doing shows from the Ottawa Beaver Lodge, just the upload speed changes make it very difficult to do a show there, and I can't use clips. And it just makes for a lesser quality show, especially when I watch it on the playback. Sometimes there are things that freeze or that skip or jump a little bit. So I figured that since I didn't have time to do pre-records before I had to go, I would just skip those days and then perhaps maybe try and do a few more over the course of the week or some shorter ones to cover more topics and to ensure that we had more shows, the requisite 5 shows per week that we tried to do. On the upside, however, if you've noticed, we've had 3 interviews now that Parliament has risen and we are able to get people to come on the show because they are more free. They have more free time or more, I don't want to say free time because they are still working, obviously, uh, during the summer, particularly politicians. They have the constituency work, but everybody else. However, it just seems that there's a little less stress and more open availability on calendars. Let's put it that way. So we had 3 pretty interesting interviews. We had Tyler Watt, who is an MPP from Ontario. We had Naomi Johnson, who is the executive director of the Imaginative Film and Media Festival for National Indigenous Peoples Day. We had a special Sunday show. And we had yesterday Dan Trays, candidate for Ward 8 in the upcoming Toronto municipal election. Hopefully, you enjoyed those. You found the interviews engaging and informative. And today we get back to our regular format, for today at least. Maybe we have more interviews coming. You never know. But we get back to our regular format because there has been lots of news. We are not able to obviously cover it all in just one show. So today we are going to focus on a series of moves that have been made federally and or provincially that have it such that the conservatives across the country, whether it be federal conservatives, and in this case, for the purposes of the show, it's primarily them, but some provincial ones as well, just saying no. So basically, a party or a government makes a proposal, and rather than taking the time to actually look at this proposal in depth, we get a reflexive reaction that is no and some denigration of the plan or some denigration of those who propose the plan, and sometimes a suggestion for something else that could be done instead, which usually is way more underwhelming and sometimes even contradicts the original opposition, which is very hard to do when you think about it, but very easy to do when you don't take time to look over a proposal and simply reflexively say no with no real reason or nothing really substantive to offer in its place. And I see here in the chat, because this is a very important interruption, that it is Jillian's birthday, Kit Jillian. So happy birthday to you. I hope it is wonderful and surrounded by love and laughter. And of course, Beaver Lodge rules apply. Birthday cake is always guilt and calorie free. So if you just want to slam your face down into it and eat it all, we highly encourage that. Okay. Don't care what you look like. just just get your nose in there and just eat all the cake. And we have Kit Dan here saying that I did see all your comments yesterday. I appreciate you all. I'm so glad you had an opportunity to see them, Kit Dan. Um, you deserved them. You deserve them. That was a very good interview that you gave us, and very informative. And everybody was impressed about your knowledge of your ward. So all the good vibes being sent your way. So let's get into the subject matter here, kids and cubs, about things being proposed and conservatives basically s- saying no. This is a very interesting position to be taking because we are in a situation at the moment with what's going on with the United States and on the international scene. We have wars in Gaza, wars in Ukraine, wars in Iran that have affected supply chains, that have affected the availability of energy, and the price of energy, that have affected the price of food and the availability of food as well. And underlying all of this, of course, we have a climate issue that a lot of us are not really addressing or claim that we want addressed. But when we find out what the cost of that is, what we're going to have to sacrifice in order to achieve that, we then, let's just say, get a little bit more focused on the immediacy, the urgency of now, and therefore decide that we are going to delay or not do as much as we can on that front. And for those who are doing what they can, in the case of this federal government, federally, there is not much touting or celebrating of it or highlighting of it, because doing so has become an opportunity for the parties of no to take a baseball bat to whatever initiative there is and try to decimate it or claim that it is going to cost you a lot more money and that you're not going to get anything for it and that it's not going to work anyhow, and that whatever, right? It's always the basic things. It's a stupid plan, it's run by incompetent, it's ripe for corruption, it's not going to work anyway, whatever, right? There has been a big push from the federal conservatives, for example, to try to paint our prime minister as someone who is incompetent, poorly educated on economics, who appears to be confused about what he really believes. There was something from Brian Lilly this morning talking about, ever notice how the prime minister changes his message depending on who he's talking to, except that it's always the same message. It's just a different aspect of it that is being highlighted at any given time, depending on the audience. Because as Brian Lilly would know, being an alleged journalist who frequently sends out messages, that messages are tailored for audiences, right? It's not confusion, it's communications 101. If you are talking to people in the nuclear industry, for example, you'll probably be wanting to highlight the energy aspects of the plan. If you are talking about people or talking to people who are in the conventional energy industry, then you'll probably be wanting to be talking about pipelines. If you're talking to people who are in the renewables, you'll probably be wanting to talk about battery storage and electrification. If you're talking to the United States, you're going to talk about ways that Canada and the United States working together would be in the better interests of the administration currently holding government, right? If you're talking to India, for example, you'll probably be talking uranium because they are looking to go nuclear. You'll probably be talking agriculture because they're the most populous country in the world and there's a lot of mouths to feed. But it's all the same plan. It's all the same core message, right? Diversification, more independence, more self reliance, more autonomy, more growing of our economy, and more not decoupling, but willing to be less exposed to a single point of failure with regard to how we are integrated with the United States. Too much is just as bad as not enough. So there seems to be this whole, and of course, we have the whole underlying elbows up, elbows down, where are your elbows, with some people still seeming to believe that elbows up means that you take every opportunity to smash your elbows in someone's face, even when the ref is looking, which, of course, that's just silly, right? There's no need to seek needless provocation. But elbows up just means, hey, right? We are in somewhat of a defensive mode. And when the time calls, maybe we raise them up a little more, but they're on guard. But that doesn't mean if there's an opportunity where it's like, hey, for this we can put them down, that we don't, because that wouldn't serve our interests, right? There's also the whole debate about short term, medium term, and long term plays, like we saw with the national food sovereignty and sustainability strategy, where that is more of a long term play. And therefore, it received a lot of criticism because who's going to benefit from that now? Or the high speed rail project, which we will talk about, because it is geographically located in one place. There are a certain number of Canadians that might never ride it. And therefore, why would they pay for it? It's no use to them. Well, of course, that's not true, because if there is increased economic activity as a result of it in one part of Canada, that economic activity benefits all of Canada eventually, right? So it's a very easy reflexive no that we are getting from mainly the Canadian conservative movement, but it's not particularly thoughtful. It's not particularly serious. And it doesn't indicate that the parties that are saying no are necessarily governments in waiting or that they necessarily have better plans. They just don't want the government of the day to be able to execute its plan. So let's take a little look into some of the things that have been suggested recently and how conservatives have reacted. Since we were mentioning it, let's talk about high speed rail. Big project being proposed. We've talked about this for a long time in Canada, but finally it seems to be getting done. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau introduced the concept around the time he was about to walk out the door. A seeming legacy announcement that he hoped that the following government would pick up on. I would assume that there were conversations that happened. And the current government did pick up on the idea, is planning to invest about $90 billion into the project overall. There was a lot of initial support for it because, again, it's something that we've been talking about for a long time. Many other nations have it. It's almost a wonder why we didn't. But now we are going down that path. And soon after that, well, we had conservatives coming in and fear-mongering about potential expropriations. that would be needed in order to get this project done because, of course, with with the speeds at which high-speed rail can travel up to 300 kilometers per hour, you need straight tracks. And if they are going to curve, the curve has to be very, 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 very slow and gradual, which means, given that we are building this in an area that has been developed, especially when you get to the bigger cities, there are fewer options, let's just say, for the path that such a track could travel. And therefore, it probably will cross certain properties and that there will need to be some type of compensation for that. That's one of many concerns. There's also other concerns about how it could, for example, affect more urban areas by creating a potential wrong side of the tracks phenomenon, as we see often in certain US cities, and we do not want to recreate that here. So there are legitimate reasons to have some reservations or to say, I have questions. Now, there was a lengthy consultation period as a result of that. And as a result of the consultation period, I believe they received about 300,000 answers, which is fairly good engagement, it would seem. I'm just going to take a look here to see if there is something about that. It says here that, well, let's see, it says it was a 100-day public and Indigenous consultation process. I'm going to look at this here. There's a news release from Transport Canada on this that says here, there we go. The Honourable Stephen McKinnon, Minister of Transport and Leader of the Government in the House of Commons, joined by Alto President and CEO Martin Imbleau, announced the release of Alto's What We Heard report. The report summarizes feedback gathered during the first phase of a comprehensive 100-day public consultation process, as well as through Indigenous consultation activities that were conducted from October 2025 through June 2026 across the Toronto-Quebec City corridor. The report reflects feedback from Canadians, Indigenous communities, municipalities, agricultural producers, landowners, industry stakeholders, community organizations, and transportation experts on the opportunities, challenges, and potential benefits associated with the project. Agricultural producers, landowners, and rural communities have raised important questions related to property acquisition, impacts on farmland and agricultural operations, access, and the potential effects of the project on their properties and communities. The feedback is helping to inform ongoing planning, design, and mitigation measures. Following the review of the findings, Minister McKinnon directed Alto to develop a plan to assess a southern route option between Peterborough and Ottawa that includes a potential stop in Kingston. Thank you very much. That would interconnect with Via Rail services subject to technical feasibility and project requirements. High-speed rail would reduce travel times between Kingston and Toronto to approximately 90 minutes, while establishing Kingston as a key regional mobility hub, improving connections and placing up to 80% of residents between Peterborough and Ottawa within a 25-minute drive of a station. Ongoing exchanges with environmental organizations in the Kingston area as a part of the consultation process clearly illustrated the need to minimize local and environmental impacts. Minister McKinnon and Alto confirmed that these concerns will be taken very seriously and that the project will be developed in a way to mitigate potential impacts. The commitment will guide all technical analyses as work progresses. Once a preferred alignment is identified, the project will proceed to more detailed design and regulatory review, including the impact and assessment process. This next phase will continue to involve consultation with potentially impacted Indigenous communities, public engagement, and coordination with provincial, municipal, and other partners. This work represents an important next step in refining the rail corridor and ensuring the project delivers the greatest possible benefits to communities across the Toronto to Quebec City corridor, while reducing impacts and remaining technically and economically viable. And the minister, Stephen McKinnon, was quoted as saying, Canadians shared valuable perspectives through Alto's consultation process, and we are acting on what we heard. I have asked Alto to further assess an alignment option that could include Kingston as a potential stop as we continue advancing this transformative project for communities across the Toronto Quebec City corridor. And from Mark Gerritsen, who is the Member of Parliament for Kingston and the Islands and the Chief Government Whip, he had to say about this. The release of Alto's What We Heard report demonstrate that Kingston's voices were thoughtfully considered throughout this important consultation process. The announcement that Kingston is being considered as a potential stop on Canada's future high-speed rail network reflects the strength of local engagement and advocacy and marks an exciting step toward greater connectivity, economic opportunity, and a more sustainable transportation future for Kingston and the surrounding region. And then Martin Imblot, who's the president and the chief executive officer of Alto, had to say about it. Consultation is an ongoing dialogue. Public input, as well as feedback from organizations, experts, and Indigenous communities, is invaluable in helping us refine the project, especially as we choose to engage early in the process. Alto's objective is to develop a project that delivers the greatest collective benefits while minimizing impacts on communities and the environment. Technical and environmental analyses are continuing rigorously, and this work will allow us to present a more precise alignment this fall that reflects the comments we have received. Now, some quick facts about the project. It will be Canada's first high-speed rail. Let's try that again. It will be Canada's first high-speed rail network spanning approximately 1,000 kilometers from Toronto to Quebec City and reaching speeds of 300 kilometers an hour or more to cut travel time in half and connect close to half of Canada's population. It will offer a sustainable transportation solution for the densely populated regions of Ontario and Quebec. It will connect economic centers at rapid speeds, boost tourism, and spur housing development across the Toronto-Quebec City corridor. It's expected to deliver a permanent 1.1% increase in GDP, equivalent to approximately $24 billion annually, while boosting productivity for generations of Canadians and creating more than 50,000 jobs during construction. It has been identified as a transformative strategy for the country. And during the consultation period, Alto hosted 26 in-person open houses, 10 virtual sessions, and 31 stakeholder roundtables engaging more than 10,000 people, over 324,000 visits on its consultation platform, and gathering nearly 45,000 online comments through online questionnaires and an interactive map. So the 300,000 number was visits to its consultation platform. From October 2025 to June 2026, Alto conducted 102 meetings with 29 Indigenous communities. Early procurement processes for activities leading up to the first phase of construction will start this year. Alto and Cadence will make sure that industry stakeholders have the information they need to participate. And one of the ways, for example, this project fits into the broader strategy, not only is it a project that would create work, not only is it a major infrastructure project, but again, the use of Canadian steel, for example, in building the tracks, because we'll have to build new tracks and not repurpose them, because we need tracks that are of quality enough to handle a train that will travel at these speeds. So there's a lot of the Buy Canadian aspect is in there. The integrating green measures into basic activities to increase our green competitiveness is included in there. I mean, it's high-speed rail. One of the criticisms of the Conservatives is that not a single person is no longer going to take their car once the high-speed rail is. It's just going to take people out of planes. Even if that was true, which it is not. But even if that were true, high-speed rail is a cleaner way to travel from Quebec City to Toronto than a plane. The green is just embedded into it. To claim that you can get from Kingston to Toronto in 90 minutes rather than 3 hours and not have to be behind the wheel. You can be in the train and doing other types of work or just relaxing and not dealing with the stress of driving, particularly on the 401, that nobody's going to jump at that. On its face, it's just silly. And then to claim that not one person, right? If you were going to make that argument, if you were a conservative and wanted to be taken seriously, you could say, well, only about 25% of people would take it. Well, then you might have a discussion on what the pickup rate would be and whether or not that's worth it. And you can have a serious conversation about that. But when you open with nobody is going to give up their car for a stress-free, not having to deal with traffic, able to be more productive in other ways in the meantime, way to get to another place that will take less time. You're basically entering the conversation saying that I'm not here to be serious. What's the point? If you'll excuse me for a second, kids and cubs, I just need to go off camera for a second to blow my nose. I'll be right back. All right. There we go. Thank you for that. Yeah, from the angle at which we sit, you and I, we share a lot. So I figured I would take care of that. Um, so this is the decision to come to Kingston in particular is a good one because a lot of us were wondering what the heck, why go through Peterborough only, but not pass through here? And yes, it makes a more direct line to Toronto. This does include a little bit of a detour. And yes, going to Peterborough, if the project is approved, creates an opportunity for additional economic activity in that region of the province where it wouldn't have been available before without such a project like that coming through, and sustainable development that could increase for a certain amount of time, not just a 1 year quick sugar high type thing. But if you have a high speed rail hub right there, that encourages a whole lot more people and businesses in order to move to that area, to start populating that area. And again, you have the multiplier effects of dollars once they are spent in the community. So there's opportunity for some great economic development in there. But little known fact is that Kingston's Via Rail station is the fourth busiest one in the nation. So there's a lot of people. There are three post-secondary education institutions here. We have Queen's University, the Royal Military College, and St. Lawrence College, with a lot of people going out of town. Rideshare services are very, very popular in this area of the country, with all the students that are looking for affordable ways to get back home on weekends and for holidays and special occasions, or just when they need a weekend home, right? Time to be with family and friends and that kind of thing. So there is a lot of demand for a service like that once it will be put in place, so long as obviously the fares are competitive, because right now with Via Rail, fares are not as competitive as they could be, which does affect ridership. So if they get the pricing correctly, that creates a lot of opportunities for people to come on. It also, as Pierre Poilièvre does accurately state, will get a lot of people out of planes because getting to the airport is a hassle. Having to get there early is a hassle. The lineups are a hassle. The extra fees for luggage are a hassle, right? You don't have to deal with any of that stuff. You just go to your local train station, which is much closer, hop on the train, have a nap, read a book, plug in your laptop, do a couple of hours work, and then you get off at your destination. And at your destination, you're also closer to downtown, right? Um, Now, we do have, in the case of Toronto, with the Billy Bishop Airport, there is airport services closer to downtown, which does, yes, absolutely mitigate that. In Montreal area, there's one that just opened in Saint Hubert, a little airport there that also is making it such that people have another option, especially if they're coming from the South Shore, not having to go all the way to Trudeau International Airport, and even coupled with a shuttle service from the Longueuil metro station to bring you to the airport, which makes, again, the job of taking that plane to get to different places much easier. And at the moment, I believe it's mostly local travel, local as in domestic, I should say, not local. Domestic travel. But in the future, there's nothing that says that there could not be international flights coming to it's called the MET, Montreal Metropolitan Airport, MET. Um, and it's officially in Saint-Hubert, is the town or the city that it's in, which is the same city that the Canadian Space Station headquarters, Canadian Space Agency headquarters are situated. For those who are wondering, Montreal does have a very good aeronautical sector. But right now, it says that that airport, the MET airport in Saint Hubert, is described as a new gateway to destinations across Canada. Located just 15 kilometers from downtown, the MET offers a smoother departure experience with a modern, accessible, and efficient terminal designed for today's and tomorrow's travelers, a key piece of infrastructure that strengthens Greater Montreal's regional and national connectivity. And sees that you can fly to Quebec City, Halifax, Charlottetown, Gaspé, Calgary, Moncton, Les Îles de la Madeleine, or the Magdalen Islands, St. John, Toronto, Billy Bishop, Toronto, Pearson, Edmonton, Hamilton, St. John's, Winnipeg, and Vancouver from that airport without having to go all the way to the island and battle all the traffic to get to Trudeau International Airport. So the need for more convenient options that are a little more centrally located, whether it be for air travel or rail travel, has been established and proven to be something that is beneficial and something that consumers would be very happy to have. So we are working on these things. So for Pierre Poilièvre to come out and say that nobody will want to ride high-speed rail if they have a car is just silly. It's just silly. Stephen Guilbeault, former Minister of the Environment, had a very astute observation with regard to Pierre Poilièvre. Now, this does mean I'm going to have to show you a little bit of Pierre Poilièvre speaking. And again, I apologize for having to do so, but I think that when you see this, if you have not seen it already, you will have deemed it extremely worth the pain that you're going to have to endure when it comes to hearing Pierre and seeing him. If you remember, not too long ago, Pierre did one of his infamous videos where he was talking a little bit to a bust statue of Sir John A. Macdonald because Pierre Poilievre really loves Sir John A. So do other conservatives like Dan Williams, who we spoke about last week, who says that rather than tearing down statues, because for some reason they cannot wrap their minds around how it is that John A. Macdonald was not a perfect prime minister, right? Very essential to the history of our country. And yes, we should learn about him, but we should learn everything about him, particularly when we are talking about National Indigenous Peoples History Month. There's a little connection there, right? So you have to talk about the good, you have to talk about the bad, you have to give the full measure of the man. And the fact that he did good things does not erase the things he could have done better or mistakes that he made. And the fact that he did make mistakes or could have done things better obviously does not erase the things that were good that contributed to making Canada what it is. One of those things was coast to coast rail. I'm not saying coast to coast to coast in this case, right? Because obvious reasons, but coast to coast rail. So in this video, Pierre Poilievre seems to wax enthusiastic, at least about our history of having connected the country by rail.
What do you think, Prime Minister? Could you get the railway built today? Let's not forget why John A. wanted an east-west railway. It's so that we wouldn't be so dependent on the Americans. But today, with the United States threatening tariffs, we need east-west trade more than ever before, and building that kind of project would be impossible. To start with, this Liberal minister would probably chain himself to a tree. Stephen Guilbeault, he said that the Liberal government will not support building any more roads. If you want to figure out how far back we've gone since John A.'s National Railway, consider this. I am announcing today that Conservatives oppose the Liberal Alto train, that we call on the Carney Liberals to cancel it, and I am confirming that a future Conservative government will cancel this.
No wonder Pierre doesn't like Stephen Guilbeault. Now, you see what he did there, right? He took that announcement about building large roads, which isn't exactly what Pierre claimed, but we won't get into that. That the federal government said that, we're going to ban all of this stuff. And then try to apply it to rail, which is an entirely different system of transportation. And then talks to John A. and says, do you think that we would be able to build a project as ambitious as Coast to Coast Rail today with all these alleged liberal obstacles to any development, as the Liberals are proposing high-speed rail in the most populous area of the country? And the Conservative reflexive response is no to this project, already labeling it a boondoggle with no evidence whatsoever. The project hasn't been alive yet for it to be boondoggled. And claiming that not only would they oppose it, but if they formed government, they would cancel it. John A. must be rolling in his tomb. That's all I will say. Because how do you, in 2025, complain that projects like Coast to Coast Rail could not be built today under Liberals, and then when Liberals propose building high-speed rail connecting Quebec City to Toronto, Conservatives turn around and say, we oppose and we would cancel? If you want to talk about sending different messages depending on who you're talking to, Brian Lilly, this would be an example. Oh, how terrible is it that we wouldn't be able to build rail today under the Liberals? What, the Liberals want to build rail? No, we can't do that. Oh, my word. Jeez. And Poilièvre is getting some help from an unexpected source. It would seem that the leader of the Parti Québécois, Paul Saint-Pierre, Poilièvre, Plamondon, doesn't want high-speed rail and says that he would pull Quebec out of the project in order to reinvest the money elsewhere. It would appear that the leader of the Parti Québécois, who is doing a bang-up job in destroying a potential majority that it looks like he was going to get by refusing to stop talking about certain things, and refusing to not insert himself into conversations in which he is going to be unhelpful. Well, that's kind of affecting him. We looked at 338canada.com and looked at projections for the province of Quebec. And Well, things are still getting worse for him. If we look at this, we will show you this since we are looking at it right now. This is what would happen if there were an election held in Quebec at the moment. The Parti Québécois, as you can see here, this was on December 3rd, 2025, was heading to an 82 seat haul if an election were going to be taken at that, if an election were to be held at that point, with a majority of 63 seats needed. Since then, it's been a rather steady decline to 58 seats. 58 seats. And Christine Fréchette, again, as the leader of the CAQ, bringing her party back from oblivion from 0 seats if an election were held on April 23rd to now 12 seats if an election were to be held today. And this is coming at the expense of both the Liberals and the Parti Québécois, but way more from the Parti Québécois than the Liberals at the moment. So Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon thought that it was a good idea to treat the Alto train speed project the same way as, for example, funding for a national daycare program, which Quebec had already had about 20 years before we did. Because Quebec often opts out of national programs in exchange for equivalent funding, where it is hoped that they will create their own version of that type of program, right? The province of Quebec doesn't participate in the Canada Pension Plan. There's a QPP, Quebec Pension Plan, Régime de pension du Québec, or des Régime des pensions et des rentes du Québec, I think, something like that. They have that. There is also, for example, like we mentioned, the daycare program. They started it before. When we started it, they wanted what their share of that program funding would be to reinvest as they please. That's fine. But here, the leader of the Parti Québécois is talking about this type of project. Well, gee, if the government of Canada is willing to spend $90 billion on this, well, that means about 40 billion of that would be spent on the Quebec portions, the Quebec links of that rail. So just give us those $40 billion and we will invest it in priority infrastructure for the Quebecois. Instead, that is not how infrastructure dollars work. It may be how program dollars work, but it's not how infrastructure dollars work. If you don't want the high-speed rail on your terrain, we'll just do it from Ottawa to Toronto, maybe extend it to Windsor instead. But you're not getting the money, and we are not getting high-speed rail all the way to Quebec City in exchange for handing you that money. That is not happening. Right. And he goes, he says that the project strongly risks being an enormous financial fiasco and says he recognizes that this position of his will not necessarily be popular. But he says that he possibly could not endorse this waste. How does he know it's waste? To the detriment of projects that are vital for the population. He says, we have neither the luxury nor the interest to pay ourselves a potentially $200 billion train, so he's decided to more than double the cost. The objective of which, or the primary objective of which, is to respond for desire of nation building and reinforcement of national unity by the federal Liberal government. As if high-speed rail going through Quebec and Ontario would not also be nation building for la nation québécoise. Let's say that Quebec were to secede And it did have high-speed rail connecting it with the country of Canada now. As an independent country, would that be an asset to have that link or a detriment? And just having the high-speed rail between Quebec City and Montreal alone. But this man, on the pure ideological basis that it is a nation-building project for Canada, cannot take a step back and see how it also has a nation-building effect for Quebec, whether Quebec remains in Canada or whether Quebec was outside of Canada. He just sees no value in it simply because it has been sold as a nation-building project for Canada. It literally makes no sense. And apparently he was very aware of it because when he made this announcement shortly before question period in the Assemblée nationale, he did not answer questions from the parliamentary press. He said that the responsible thing to do was to invest in vital projects such as schools, hospitals, and our deteriorating roads. And then he sent out the the membre de l'Assemblée nationale from les Îles de la Madeleine, Joël Arsenault, to answer questions in his place, saying, we're going to use the money that is being dedicated to impose upon us a project that at the current moment is not a priority in our eyes. That's the complaint, that Canada is using its money to impose upon Quebec a project that at least the Parti Québécois doesn't see as a priority because, as Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon said, it is being built as a nation-building project for Canada. I'm okay. Christine Fréchette, the Premier of Quebec at the moment, said it's not true that we're going to be able to go and recuperate billions and billions of dollars if this project does not go ahead. Like, this is complete mythology. And it's not like the Coalition Avenir Québec is an extremely pro-federalist party. It's much more autonomist. They don't want separation, but they believe in much more autonomy. And of course, the mayor of Montreal, Soraya Martinez Ferrada, says that the high-speed rail should not be a partisan issue. High-speed rail will have a positive impact on the economy, the environment, and mobility, said the mayor of Laval, Stéphane Boyer. And you have to make sure that the project is going to be well done, but this should not stop us from going forward. The mayor of Quebec City, Bruno Marchand, says we are already delayed enough as it is in getting a project like this off the ground. And François Legault, the ex-prime minister, also criticized the leader of the PQ, saying, by pulling Quebec out of the project that will link not only Quebec City, Montreal, but will have a stop in Trois-Rivières as well, the third largest city in the province. Toronto, so from Quebec, Trois-Rivières, Montreal, and Toronto, the Parti Québécois defends indirectly the milking cow that is Air Canada. So how do you claim that you don't want to participate in a nation-building project if you are going to support a position that naturally directs more business to Air Canada? You got to think these things through. The leader of the Bloc Québécois says that Ottawa is behaving in a gross and vulgar and disrespectful manner. towards the people that live along the potential routes and around them that this project would take. Again, these don't seem like these are serious objections. Now, everything that has to do with where the route is passing, and will landowners be appropriately compensated for land that needs to be expropriated or land that needs to be reclaimed by the federal government in order to put that project through, how that will affect agricultural zones, those are absolutely valid concerns that must be addressed, and that project must be done right. But on the basis that it is a national unity project for Canada, on the basis that not a single person would give up their card to ride this, that is not on the basis that, hey, we could recuperate those $40 billion that would be spent on the Quebec portion, and we can do other stuff with it here. That also, that's just living in La La Land. There's no foundation for these types of beliefs at all. So that's high-speed rail. Another thing about which conservatives are saying no these days is celebrating Canada's cultural mosaic. As you know, June happens to be Pride Month. It's also National Indigenous History Month, but it's much more than that, kids and cubs. It's also Italian Heritage Month, and Filipino Heritage Month, and Portuguese Heritage Month. June 27th is Canadian Multiculturalism Day. Yesterday, the 24th, was Saint Jean-Baptiste Day. And if we look back in the month of May, May was Asian Heritage Month, Canadian Jewish Heritage Month, Polish Heritage Month, and Dutch Heritage Day was in May. There's also the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. The last Sunday of May was National Accessibility Week. If we look throughout the calendar, we have Tamil Heritage Month in January. We have Black History Month in February. We have Irish Heritage Month in March. Sikh Heritage Month in April. Conservatives are upset that we have all these months or days to celebrate different cultures. We are a very multiracial country, multi-ethnic country, multi-faith country. We are pluralist. Unlike the United States, we are not a melting pot. We are a cultural mosaic. You can be Canadian and you can be everything else that you are. And it's not a bad thing because all of it adds to the richness. All of it gets woven into the tapestry. That is Canada. And that because of all of these different perspectives and all of these views that we bring, we are ultimately stronger and better. Well, it seems that there was a month that has been recently recognized that probably sent conservatives over the edge. And I think that that would be as a result of Bill S-227. Which I believe was introduced on June 5th, 2025, And third reading introduced in the Senate, because it's a S bill, which means it originated in the Senate. And it just finished third reading on Thursday, June 18th, 2026. And it was voted on. And it passed. Now, what type of bill would create such consternation among conservatives that it would lead them to claim that we need to somehow be in opposition to all of these months? Or as Ben Mulroney described it, well, yes, we understand that we have all this, but we have this pesky little thing called a calendar that makes it so difficult. We just can't celebrate all the flavors of Canada because there are only 12 months, there are only 52 weeks, and there are so many more cultures. It's just too much. Oh, like the calendar cares. Like the calendar has feelings. We just had an interview with Naomi Johnson when they moved the Imaginative Film Festival from October to June, stating that some of the opposition that was there was like, well, but there's that month there and there's that month there, and that we'll be stepping on toes. There's no reason to worry about that. No matter when you pick, you are going to be stepping on someone's toes somehow. See, apparently, the conservatives' argument is founded on some type of notion that we as Canadians, because the month exists, are all obligated somehow to take time out of our lives during those months or during those days to celebrate. So, because it was Filipino Heritage Month, if you have no connection whatsoever to the Filipino community, somehow you're obligated to go and do something. Now, we just recently had in the park here, right, a Filipino fair where you can go and find out about the community here, sample some food, talk to people. And if that's something that you would like to do, it was open to you. And if it's something that didn't call to you, you could just leave it to the people to whom it calls and opt to not have an opinion about it because it doesn't affect you. Just don't participate if the month doesn't speak to you. But there are people here to whom the month speaks. And it seems that they had a problem. Well, the thing that happened is that the Honorable Senator Mohammed Khair al-Zabak sponsored Bill S227. That passed on June 18th, 2026. And the text of this bill, the summary of the bill, this enactment designates the month of April as Arab Heritage Month. Oh. The preamble of the bill. Whereas the first persons of Arab origin arrived in Canada in 1882 in the early years after Confederation, whereas the population of Arab Canadians has since grown to over 1 million and continues to flourish with young and dynamic Arab Canadian communities thriving throughout Canada, whereas Arab Canadians from all walks of life have made important contributions to Canada's social, economic, and political life, whereas Arab Canadians have made rich contributions to the cultural fabric of Canada, including through literature, music, food, and fashion, and whereas Parliament wishes to recognize and celebrate the historic mark that Arab Canadians have made and continue to make in building Canadian society. Now, therefore, His Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, the House of Commons of Canada, enacts as follows. 1. This act may be cited as the Arab Heritage Month Act. And 2. Throughout Canada, in each year, the month of April is to be known as Arab Heritage Month. That's that's the bill. And conservatives lost their minds. Gee, I wonder what it is about Arabs being celebrated that would have conservatives up in arms, especially since it is the party that is out there pretending or stating that it is offering its full support to the current Netanyahu administration. Now, of course, if you're asking the conservatives whether their objection would extend to canceling Canadian Jewish Heritage Month, because these are not communities that are inherent to Canada, then they go silent. They have nothing. And ironically, once again, I might have to show you a little Pierre Poilièvre, because yesterday, as you know, was Saint Jean Baptiste Day. And Pierre was in La Beauce region in Quebec to, quote, celebrate national holiday in Quebec culture. Quote, from generation to generation, Quebecers and Francophone communities across the country continue to pass down their language, their culture, and their traditions. Happy national holiday to all Quebecers and happy Saint Jean Baptiste to all French Canadians. Let's show an image, some video of Pierre so vociferously and passionately objecting to celebrating other cultures.
Est-ce qu'il y a des jarrets noirs ici? Des bosserons? Bonne fête nationale! Je suis très heureux d'être ici avec votre député extraordinaire, Jason Rollo, un homme d'affaires, un père de famille, un joueur de hockey et des bagarres aussi, je comprends. Comme il est dans la Chambre des communes, il travaille fort pour vous. Merci, Madame la mairesse, pour l'invitation. Je suis très heureux d'être ici avec les bosserons, les gens les plus travaillants, les plus entrepreneuriaux, les plus courageux au monde.
Here he's saying that the people from La Beauce region are the hardest working and the most entrepreneurial in the entire world. There might be some people in Alberta who might have something to say about him saying that, talking again about having different messages for different people.
Et je suis juste ici en train de partager le message qu'on célèbre les Québécois, la francophonie, bon Saint-Jean, bonne fête nationale. Merci beaucoup.
Now again, I shouldn't criticize, but it's actually Bonne Saint-Jean, feminine, not masculine. Did a little politicking there because the MP for the region happens to be conservative and was invited there by the mayor. Clearly didn't write out his text before, just to make sure that he got the adjectives correctly. But yeah, he is out there, the man who, as well, in the first long portion of his career as a politician, balked at his name being pronounced in French, Poilièvre, who now definitely uses Poilièvre, particularly when he's in Quebec. Out there celebrating Francophone culture. Now, you have people say, well, but that's a part of Canada. That's okay. It has something to do with Canada. And you would have a point there, but you have some people saying, "Oh, well, that's because he married a Quebecer who reconciled him with his French heritage." Don't you people do nuance? Yes, 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 we do. We do nuance. Um, do you? Because in this very creative retelling of the story, you forgot that the Quebecer who allegedly reconciled him with his French heritage was Venezuelan born. Nay Venezuelan, now Quebecer. And her husband objects to the federal government recognizing her own heritage as being worthy of celebrating. Yes, yes, we do nuance. So yeah, um, Parliament recognizes Arab Heritage Month, and conservatives lose their mind, want to take away recognition from everybody else who is not, I guess, Canadian enough. I guess not old stock enough, because 1882 is not long enough to have been part of the fabric of this country, to have your heritage recognized. These people, these people. Okay. Yeah, did I say doo-doo again? Kid Elaine always catches me when I say doo-doo. Kid Dab, no, don't do nuance that way. Oh, man. Another thing that has conservatives hopping mad these days is a plan by the federal government to take some action in British Columbia because there are vacant condos. This is according to Benjamin Lopez Stephen of CBC News. Conservative leader Pierre Poilièvre is slamming a plan, of course, he is, by the federal and BC governments to buy vacant condo units in the province and turn them into affordable housing. A move he describes as a, quote, bailout that should be immediately cancelled because, yes, conservatives are famous for objecting to bailouts, particularly conservatives of this version of the Conservative Party, because we didn't go through anything in 2008 that required banks, I believe, and car manufacturers, among others, to receive bailouts. And the Conservative government wasn't the one that was offering them to them there. In fact, conservatives brag a lot about Stephen Harper having left Canada with a surplus. But as you know, if you've been paying attention to the show, that wasn't a structural surplus. It was a empty calorie surplus that was achieved by the sale at fire sale prices at a loss of shares that the government of Canada, that the people of Canada acquired in exchange for their bailout of GM in the 2008 crash. They like bailouts until they don't. Quote, "Where's your bailout?" Pierre told reporters in Vancouver off Sunday afternoon. Again, where's your bailout? He told reporters who do actually benefit from a subsidy program that then the conservatives turn around and say that, well, that makes it such that these media companies are beholden to pushing the liberal line. And if you've ever read a newspaper in Canada, particularly any that's owned by Post Media, which is a US-based pro-Trump asset management firm based in New Jersey, specifically, then yeah, right. Or if we hear about how certain publications that speak more to the demographic that Pierre is trying to cultivate, and we find out that certain governments buy a lot of advertising space in those publications because that's not being subsidized in any way, shape, or form by the government. He has no problem with that too. Where's your bailout? He further argued that Prime Minister Mark Carney, quote, seems to have a bailout for anyone who's part of the liberal club of power brokers. On Thursday, Carney and BC Premier David Eby announced that over the next 10 years, the federal government would invest more than $5 billion in British Columbia's local infrastructure through the Build Communities Strong Fund. One component of the agreement is a Canada-British Columbia partnership on condo conversion, which will leverage innovative financing tools to turn more than 2,200 vacant condo units into affordable homes. According to a news release from the Prime Minister's office, quote, this is one of the fastest and most efficient ways to increase housing supply, welcoming British Columbians to new affordable homes as quickly as possible. So we have a housing crisis. Everybody agrees upon that because you keep on hearing Pierre talk all the time about, oh my God, children living in parents' basements forever. We have, in particular, a affordable housing crisis, which Pierre would be very familiar because when he was allegedly housing minister, he wasn't. Housing was just one of his many portfolios when he was in another position. Pierre Poilièvre was there when the Harper government canceled programs that would help people find affordable housing, cutting them from greater than 90% up to 100%, while at the same time offering subsidies of some kind to Canadians who could afford down payments. Right? Pierre keeps on talking about cuts to development charges to make homes more affordable. That would reduce the HST and GST on houses. We literally have homes that are built that condo developers are not able to sell. While we have a housing crisis, an affordable housing crisis, particularly in Vancouver, where housing is sky high, and for conservatives, rather than this being an opportunity that is being seized, it is a bailout. But they care about young people having to stay in their parents' basements until they're in their 30s or 40s, though. They just don't like a solution that has homes already built and that are vacant. They would rather those homes remain vacant. And it's not like conservatives have a history of opposing bailouts or subsidies of developers. I mean, if you're in Ontario, you know very well that conservatives have no problems funneling tax dollars to developers. Hi, Doug. We read you a story a few months ago from The Breach, great independent publication, about Poilièvre and his donors Who are Pierre's donors? Investigation by the independent media outlet The Breach revealed that Conservative leader Pierre Poilièvre has accepted donations from top real estate executives and property developers while heading dozens of private high-ticket fundraisers and multi-million-dollar mansions. The report that was published in March 18th, 2024. Sorry, no. The report was, well, there's two articles, March 18th, 2024, and then March 24th, 2025. Pierre had held over 50 private cash for access fundraisers in exclusive clubs and luxury homes across Canada where attendees, including real estate developers and corporate lobbyists, paid up to $1,725 per ticket. The guest lists and fundraising disclosures. Let's try that again. The guest lists and fundraising disclosures filed with Elections Canada show a heavy presence of executives from large real estate investment trusts, REITs, and development firms. While Pierre Poilièvre rails against gatekeepers and corporate elites, The Breach notes that his fundraising circuit heavily features the real estate and financial executives who are deeply invested in Canada's housing market. But he's against. He's against bailouts for developers. There we go. March 18th, 2024, corporate lobbyists are flocking to Pierre Poilièvre's Cash for Access fundraisers. More than 100 active or recent corporate lobbyists have attended the Conservative Party's Cash for Access fundraisers since Pierre Poilièvre became leader. March 18th, 2024. But Pierre now wants you to believe that he has a problem with this. And he doesn't have a problem with this. He has a problem with affordable housing. Clearly. Because through his entire career, he's always opposed pretty much any action that would lead to housing being more affordable. And while he was allegedly Minister of Housing, he was there when programs that would allow people to access affordable housing were gutted or eliminated altogether. These are all the reasons I cannot take this man and I cannot take this movement seriously. Because they claim one thing at the same time as they are doing the opposite. It was like, again, I keep on bringing it up, but it was like that election that brought Stephen Harper into power in the early 2000s. We're capitalizing on all the liberal scandals of the day. He ran on accountability while about 69 members of his party, the candidates running in that election, participated in the in and out scheme, making illegal election expenses and filing false documents in order to deem those expenses as being legitimate, but also to get reimbursed for a portion of them. Money that they were not legally entitled to spend. And then they were in court for that for years, claiming, no, they did nothing wrong, until they were about to go into another election and decided to plea. Because having that issue surface during the election would have been a little inconvenient. They paid fines. They ran on accountability while they were cheating and filing false documents. They complained about Prime Minister Justin Trudeau being on the private island of the Aga Khan, while Rona Ambrose, the interim leader, was on the yacht of her well-connected billionaire boyfriend. The leader of the party himself has a lifetime compliance order. with Elections Canada because he himself couldn't follow the rules. And Mr. Allegedly Law and Order, once he found out that his party did actually plead guilty to playing fast and loose with election finance rules and filing false documents, of course, left the party in protest. Oh, no, that didn't happen. He's leading it now. But he has a problem with developers and bailouts. Yeah, believe him on that. Oh my God. Oh, jeez. Another thing. Sorry, I'm having too much fun with this one today. Another thing, which conservatives have recently said no to, in addition to high-speed rail, affordable housing, and celebrating Canada's cultural mosaic, noise regulation bylaws. In the city of Calgary, where the mayor of Calgary, Mr. Farkas, is emerging as one of our kids, I believe was Kid Elaine, as a badass. Actually, it would appear that in the province of Alberta, or in Danielle Smith's Berta, they are not pleased with the mayor of Calgary, and and they are trying to do to him what it is they did to Mayor Jyoti Gondek. Just smear and smear and smear and smear and smear until hopefully the population turns against them. Except that the current mayor of Calgary is not particularly cooperative with that plan. There is an event that is happening in the context of the Calgary Stampede. I don't think it is an official Calgary Stampede event, but the fact that it is happening around the time of it has had people, how would I put it? When there's an event like Calgary Stampede, it's an opportunity for a lot of people or businesses to create other events that sort of have a similar theme, but are not necessarily associated with the main event or not officially sanctioned by that main event. And in the case of the city of Calgary, there was something called Country Thunder Music Festival. And it seems that there were some issues with regard to the event organizers' willingness to respect the residents of the neighborhoods that were nearby to where the event was being held. And it seems that eventually the organizers of this event canceled it. They put out something stating, "Today we have made the difficult decision to cancel Country Thunder Alberta 2026. Country Thunder has been in direct communication with the City of Calgary in an effort to resolve a series of escalating challenges. Active construction, loss of critical infrastructure, and a restrictive noise bylaw make safe and enjoyable execution of the festival impossible. We aim to provide a world-class event and cannot offer that experience to fans with these new restrictions. We are deeply sorry to everyone who planned their summer around this. Refunds will automatically be processed back to the original form of payment in as little as 30 business days. Any follow-up questions can be redirected to info@countrythunder.com." This has caused conservatives to, again, lose their minds. it would seem that this may not have been a good move, or at least trying to toy with the mayor was not a good move. Now, with regard to this event being canceled, it would appear that some of the reasons for which the event was canceled didn't really have to do anything with the restrictive, allegedly, noise bylaw, but with the fact that the weather forecast for the event was going to be pretty terrible and that there were low ticket sales. But let's not allow facts to get in the way of a very good narrative. Danielle Smith decided to get involved at some point, posting on the Jitter. The Calgary Stampede is one of Alberta's most important cultural and tourist attractions, supporting thousands of jobs and showcasing our province to the world. We've written Calgary City Council urging immediate and meaningful consultation with the businesses, workers, artists, and organizers impacted by recent noise bylaw changes in the hopes that the city and various affected music venues can resolve this impasse in a way that makes it more sense for everyone. And then let's have ourselves a fantastic stampede. Read our full letter below. Well, let's read that letter. Addressed to the entire council by name. They've got the whole list of them. Mayor Jeremy Farkas, Councillor Kim Tyers, Councillor Jennifer Wyness, all the way down. Dear Mayor Farkas and members of Calgary City Council, we are writing regarding the City of Calgary's recent decision to implement new noise bylaw restrictions affecting Stampede music festivals and entertainment venues, including reduced allowable noise levels and earlier weeknight closing requirements. While we appreciate the city's efforts to address concerns raised by nearby residents, we are concerned by both the timing of these changes and their potential consequences for workers, businesses, public safety, and Calgary's reputation as a world-class event destination. The Calgary Stampede welcomes nearly 1.5 million attendees each year, like the council, and would not be aware of that, and is the largest tourism event in Alberta. Its impact extends far beyond Stampede Park, supporting thousands of jobs and generating substantial economic activity for hotels, restaurants, retailers, transportation providers, artists, and small businesses across Calgary. Again, like the council, would not be aware of this. What is particularly concerning is that while stakeholders were aware changes were being contemplated earlier this year, the specific bylaw restrictions and operating requirements were not communicated until only weeks before Stampede. By that point, event organizers, businesses, artists, and contractors had already made significant investments in operational decisions. As Tourism Calgary recently noted, regulatory certainty is the bedrock of private investment. Oh, the irony. Please talk to the renewable sector. By the way, because of regulatory certainty and consultation, investment in the renewable sector in Alberta has dropped 99%. And the government of Alberta just helped that by imposing a fee for recycling solar panels of $14, which compared to the fees to recycle anything else, for example, a TV is $2.35, is pretty high. We are also concerned about the public safety implications of requiring multiple venues to conclude performances simultaneously, concentrating thousands of attendees onto surrounding streets at the same time, places additional pressure on transportation networks, security personnel, and emergency services. Yeah. So you treat it like peak hours and you bring in more buses, like we've been doing since we've had public transit and big events at the same time. That's why Alberta's government is also taking steps to support a safe and successful stampede. This week, the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service and Calgary Police Service will formalize a partnership to enhance law enforcement's presence during stampede and support public safety efforts in and around major entertainment districts. Residents deserve to have their concerns heard and addressed. However, meaningful consultation with affected stakeholders should occur before significant operational changes are implemented, particularly when those changes affect one of Alberta's most important annual events, but not when it comes to changing borders for treaty Indigenous peoples, though, right? when it's a noise bylaw affecting stampede and cowboy culture, then Danielle Smith cares about consultation. But yeah, if it's a referendum on separation that will just change borders, who needs to consult with those people? You're literally riding the horse of non-consultation when it comes to potential separation. And now you want us to believe that you care about consultation. I'm just, yeah. With additional public safety resources being deployed and significant concerns being raised by businesses, workers, tourism operators, and event organizers, we strongly urge Council to meet directly and expeditiously with the affected stakeholders, including businesses, event operators, tourism organizations, workers, artists, and public safety officials. We further request that Council provide a response by June 30th outlining the steps being taken to address these concerns and engage affected stakeholders. This will allow Alberta's government to evaluate whether there is a role for the province in assisting the city and stakeholders to resolve the issue ahead of this year's Calgary Stampede. Yeah, assisting. You need help to determine whether or not you need to assist, because this letter that you're sending isn't you deciding that you need to assist. Calgary's success has always been built on collaboration and practical problem solving. We are confident that through open dialogue and meaningful engagement, a solution can be found that respects nearby communities while preserving the jobs, economic benefits, visitor experiences, and public safety outcomes that all Albertans expect from the Calgary Stampede. Let's see, respects, communities while preserving jobs. Okay, yeah. She did talk about respecting nearby communities. Residents of neighborhoods who do need to go to work, stampede or not, the next day. When events that are somewhat tangentially connected to stampede by virtue of the fact that there's a stampede going on, but not actual stampede events, host live music performances that keep music pretty loud going into residential neighborhoods when people need to work the next day and children need to sleep to, let's say, get a good education. Now, again, school is out in the summer during Stampede, but not for everyone. Not always, right? There is summer school. So the mayor had some things to say about this. So let's bring the mayor, Mr. Jeremy Farkas, who is not taking any of Danielle's guff, like at all.
Good evening, Calgary. It's Mayor Jeremy, and it's time to cut through the bullshit about the Cowboys tent. By now, you've seen the coordinated smear campaign from out-of-town politicians, and they think you're stupid and want you to believe that we're somehow canceling Stampede by asking the big tents to use the same rules in place at Coachella, Lollapalooza, and all of the other world-class festivals. And that's the first piece of bullshit. We're not talking about Stampede at all. We're talking about a few off-site tents that have been treating their neighbors like garbage. So here's the truth. In the last few years, the tents were given a special exemption way above and beyond what was in place until about 2019. People living near these tents were told to call 311 and wait Meanwhile, their windows shook and broke, their shelves rattled, and music ran on weeknights until 2 or 3 a.m. So they dealt with property damage, public disorder, and excessive intoxication right outside their homes. Thousands of Calgarians raised their concerns. And just like when we repealed blanket rezoning, the city chose to listen to the people rather than answer to the money. The second piece of bullshit is that Calgary's rules suck compared to everywhere else. In fact, the changes are modest. There's no change on the weekends at all. But on weeknights, concerts now need to wrap up by about 12:30 a.m. Even with this change, it means that Calgary still allows outdoor music later than anywhere else in North America. The third piece of bullshit is that this was done somehow last minute. This wasn't a last minute change. The big tents knew in February that their exemption was under review, and Cowboys was told again in May. Their exemption depended on managing noise, safety, and impacts on nearby residents, and they did not meet that standard. But what isn't bullshit is that as your mayor, I'm fighting for you. I want you to know that a permit is not a license to bully a neighborhood. It is not a profit guarantee. And I was elected to stand up for Calgarians, not to take orders from wealthy donors, lobbyists, or out-of-town politicians protecting their friends. That said, I'm more than happy to see compromise and work with the operators who do respect Calgarians. But I answer to the nurse on an early shift, the parent getting kids ready for school, and the worker who needs sleep. So no, we are not canceling Stampede. We are protecting it. Stampede succeeds because Calgarians welcome millions of people into our city, and that goodwill matters. A few operators do not get to treat their neighbors like garbage and damage the reputation of an event that belongs to all of us. So if you want to do business in Calgary, respect the people who live next door. Good evening, Calgary.
Oh, there you go, kits and cups. Pretty straightforward. The mayor of Calgary here. No mincing words. Exactly. Kit Tavi, Kit Saucy. I like this guy. Uniquely Jillian. Go mayor of Calgary. Indeed. Indeed. And then things got better, kits and cubs, because as you see, there was a smear of the mayor and of the council making a whole bunch of false claims. And then Adam McVicker, a journalist covering City Hall for Global Calgary, announced on Twitter on June 23rd, breaking, Calgary City Council votes against a motion to roll back changes to noise exemption rules for music festival tents during this year's Calgary Stampede. Weeknight concerts must end at midnight with cool-down music until 1 a.m. The motion was defeated 6 votes to 9. So, council, on whom the premier was trying to stunt with that letter, took that letter and said, no. No. Sorry, but no. Which had Rob Anderson, her right-hand man, talking about whether or not they needed to invoke the Sovereignty Act or Notwithstanding Clause to overturn the City of Calgary's new Stampede noise bylaws. Again, they are not Stampede noise bylaws. They are noise bylaws for people operating events outside of Stampede. Clearly, something needs to be done. Nothing is off the table, said Rob Anderson. Who had to change his tune soon after. Even Rick Bell, columnist from the Calgary Herald, who normally is in the bag for Danielle Smith, had to look at the mayor with a little bit of admiration. Crackle, sizzle, roar. Calgary Mayor Jeremy Farkas is on fire. A permit is not a free pass to keep people awake for 11 nights because someone powerful demands it. Rick, you spoke up for years. You were told to call 311. You were told to wait while people with money, access, and powerful friends expected City Hall to look the other way. If you want to do business in Calgary, respect Calgarians, and that includes people who live next door. This isn't about the stampede. We're laying down the law for the bad operators who refuse to treat their neighbors with respect. Too many powerful people only talk about freedom when it protects their friends. They have nothing to say about a nurse, a parent, a worker wanting to sleep before a shift. This is the test of whether we listen to big money or listen to the people. We're not talking about tents at the Calgary Stampede. We're not talking about tents anywhere near the Calgary Stampede. We're not talking about the Stampede suffering or how Calgary won't be a world-class city or how tourists will stop coming here. We are not talking about Calgary City Hall becoming the fun police and shutting down good times in the city. It's about the Cowboys tent and the Badlands tent and how they operate as if they don't give a damn about the many Calgarians who live close to them. For years, first it was Badlands. I wrote a lot about them. Others raised their voices. Nothing. Then came the double whammy when former Mayor Jyoti Gondek let the Cowboys take over at the current location. Through it all, the locals have begged City Hall to do the right thing and put reasonable limits on the noise booming at the window-shaking homes of sleep-deprived Calgarians many blocks away for 11 straight nights. The noise, the social disorder, 11 nights. Mayor Farkas and Calgary City Hall listened. Believe it or not, they did. On weeknights, the tent concerts end at midnight. There's no change to concert endings on Fridays and Saturdays. That's 1:30 a.m. Allowable noise levels would go down from 75 decibels to 70 decibels. Ooh. And with these modest tweaks, all hell broke loose. Paul Vickers, the man behind Cowboys, plays full court pressed Chicken Little and tells us the sky will fall and the economy will be threatened if he doesn't get his way. Then Jenny Byrne, longtime federal conservative big shot and now an Ontario-based public relations somebody, posts Vickers' piece on X, once known as Twitter. Then Ronna Ambrose, a former federal conservative somebody, posts Byrne and Vickers on X. Then Michelle Rempel Garner, conservative MP, probably in Oklahoma at the moment, says Ambrose is right, and that is reposted by Byrne along with Vickers. Rempel Garner also has her opinion piece in the press, which is shared by the group. Then Premier Danielle Smith joins the chorus and talks about the fun police striking again in Calgary and asks people to read Vickers. Even federal conservative leader Pierre Poilièvre jumps on the train. Byrne was boss of Poilièvre's campaign last year. Poilièvre says City Hall is smothering country music culture. I think Pierre should check out the lineups at the two tents. Their message, Vickers of Cowboys is right. He is the victim. The residents? Who? I call the mayor. His interview is gold. Those things that were said at the beginning were quotes from his interview. Farkas says the people mentioned above are manufacturing BS. Quote, we really have to cut away the BS, says Farkas, adding no one's business model should depend on treating nearby residents as garbage and collateral damage. He says the city's rules for the tents are now about what they were in 2018, and the stampede was rocking back then, and tents were not plopped in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Farkas adds these tents had an exemption from the rules if they managed noise and public safety, but they did not meet the standard. He says the tents were told back in February there would be changes in the rules, and Cowboys was told again in May. The mayor talks about world-class music fests like Coachella and Lollapalooza. Sorry, I mispronounced that. Lollapalooza in Chicago, and says what Calgary is doing is actually permissive. He also says he's not going to take orders from lobbyists or out-of-touch federal and provincial politicians. Farkas still has a little more heat. He says Smith is trying to change the channel from other issues. Quote, if they can paint this as a big bad city hall shutting down poor little Stampede, they think they can win. It assumes Calgarians are idiots, but we're not idiots. Meanwhile, Smith is sending sheriffs to patrol the tents and sends Calgary City Council a letter late Monday where it sure sounds like the premier wants to really step into this fight. Rick Bell, Kits and Cups. Rick Bell. Wow. And then you had Trevor Scott Howell, who's a writer and researcher, former journalist from Toronto Star and Calgary Herald, who makes the comment. A Calgary noise ball got Danielle Smith attention faster than the voter list data leak exposing the private information of 3 million Albertans. Just sit with that for a minute. Huh? Right? Danielle Smith doesn't like to be told no. And she was just told to go pound sand by the Calgary Council. Wow. But Mayor Farkas was not done. Oh no. Since you liked them so much the first time around, why not a little more?
Hey Calgary, it's Mayor Jeremy. No swearing this time, even though I may want to. I was really disappointed to see Country Thunder throw the city and music fans under the bus today by falsely blaming our noise rules for canceling their concerts. They are plainly trying to take advantage of the noise and misinformation around this topic and bluntly hoping that you wouldn't look at the facts. Just 2 days ago, Country Thunder told City News that things were going well and that the city's noise rules would not affect its event. This and other articles clearly state that the organizers say the changes won't impact their operations. Their own staff are quoted saying, "Our curfew for our festival has always been 11 p.m. So blaming a midnight music cutoff for shutting down your concert that ends at 11 p.m. is absolutely bogus. Country Thunder was never part of the debate over whether the downtown tents should end at 2 a.m. or midnight. In fact, the city actually increased the allowable music volume for Country Thunder this year. Now, 2 days after saying things were going great, Country Thunder says sound limits made their event impossible? Come on! Those statements just don't line up. Even their statements about construction impacts are easily debunked because our teams have been working really closely with them for months now. I'm not going to speculate about why they made this decision to so grossly mislead the public. I'm not going to speculate on how the massive rain this weekend was potentially going to impact their sales. And I'm not going to speculate on how the news of their headliner Kane Brown pulling out of concerts was potentially going to impact their sales. But it's crystal clear Country Thunder made a business decision that cannot be blamed on the city noise rules. I'm really disappointed for ticket holders, workers, vendors, performers, local businesses, and every music fan who planned to attend. Calgary supports great events, live music, tourism, and jobs, but the facts matter, and organizers need to be honest with their customers and take responsibility for their decisions. Thanks, Calgary. This news came as a shock to me and the rest of the folks at the city, but we'll share more when we know more.
All right, kids and cubs. And as many of you have noticed, Mayor Farkas changed bullshit to bogus. Reminds me of a joke that I heard once about someone who would always say bullshit, and people didn't want to go to their dinner parties anymore. So apparently they went to some type of finishing school, and she invited people over to the dinner to show how she had grown. And people were telling stories, oh, my husband got this new job. Ah, that's nice. My son just got admitted to NYU. Ah, that's nice. My daughter just won the science fair. Oh, that's nice. And everybody at the end was like, wow, Lydia, like this was such a pleasant evening. How did you do it? And she says, well, before I used to say bullshit. Now I say that's nice. We have Kid Brent here also pointing out another fact. Fun Police. In early June, the Alberta Gaming and Lottery Commission in Alberta changed the minimum price of 20 ounces draft beer from $3.20 to $5. The mayor pointed this out. Shortly afterwards, the Alberta Gaming and Lottery Commission was ordered to keep the original price so Stampede is not affected. Danielle Smith just likes a fight. She can't exist if she's not fighting someone. Then there was a City of Calgary statement, also reported by Adam McIver of Global News. Claims Country Thunder organizers were, quote, satisfied with mitigation plans in place following a meeting with city officials this morning. The City of Calgary was surprised to learn through the media this afternoon that Country Thunder Alberta had decided to cancel its 2026 event. This was the first indication we received that the event might not proceed, As recently as this morning, city staff from festivals and events, the Calgary Fire Department, Infrastructure Services, and the contractor met with Country Thunder representatives. At that meeting, Country Thunder representatives confirmed they were satisfied with the mitigation plans in place for this weekend's event. In addition to this morning, the city has had ongoing contact with Country Thunder organizers since January 2026, where all parties were informed of the project background, scope, schedule, and traffic control plans. Through subsequent regular dialogue with event organizers, the city incorporated several changes to the construction work zone, work sequencing, and site accesses to accommodate the organizers' needs. This year's noise exemption permit for Country Thunder increased the allowable decibel level from 65 to 70, which better aligns with noise measurements taken last year during the event. Base levels were reduced from 85 decibels to 80, in keeping with changes to permits being issued for other upcoming music festivals. However, base levels have not been a reported concern with Country Thunder due to the genre of music played at this event. A meeting to answer any questions regarding these changes were offered to Country Thunder organizers this month, to which they did not respond. Construction affecting access to the area from 9th Avenue has been actively managed since the project began on January 12, 2026. This work is a critical part of connecting the Culture and Entertainment District across the CPKC rail line and will create an underpass and improve traffic along 6th Street. The city's intent has always been to minimize disruptions during the event and reduce potential impacts on attendees and organizers. While we are disappointed that organizers have chosen not to proceed, the city remains committed to supporting festivals and events that contribute to Calgary's vibrancy while balancing the needs of residents, businesses, public safety, and ongoing city building projects. We recognize the important role events like Country Thunder play in Calgary's cultural and economic landscape and remain open to continued dialogue with organizers about the 2026 show and future opportunities. So you have a situation here where the mayor not only is saying, listen, you can't come here and treat people like garbage, but hey, if you want to talk, we're willing to make some compromises. Which is a responsible, very grown up, mature position to take. And then, whether or not those opportunities were seized by organizers or not, well, that's up to them. But in this case, it seems like it wasn't, and the organizers ended the event. Now, very important to note here, that even though there was weather issue, even though there were poor ticket sales, even though the headliner pulled out, the headliner did not pull out due to reasons having to do with this. Apparently, they suffered a major gulf injury that resulted in needing 23 stitches. We have the mayor one more time here, which was soon after the decision from council to reject Danielle Smith's call to let her have her way.
Hey Calgary, it's Mayor Jeremy. This morning, Council voted to keep reasonable rules in place for off-site Stampede tents. We know that Stampede succeeds because Calgarians welcome millions of people into our city, and that goodwill matters. It belongs to all of us. We want visitors, artists, workers, and businesses to have a great Stampede. This decision strikes the balance. Calgary will have a vibrant festival scene while respecting the people who live nearby. On weeknights, concerts end at midnight, followed by wind-down music until 1 a.m. And on weekends, concerts end at 2 a.m. Calgary remains the most permissive major city in North America for outdoor music, and we run later than Coachella, Lollapalooza, and other major festivals in North America. Thousands of Calgarians shared their views, and Council listened. I also really appreciate the outreach from Cowboys management and commit to working with operators who respect Calgarians and our neighbors. Together, we're going to put on a safe, successful Stampede that brings people together. Stampede belongs to all of us. Let's celebrate it with pride.
Oh, there you go. So again, right? No, we are going to respect the people. Here are some rules. What, you want to talk to us? Let's have some outreach. Sure, we're happy to talk. We're happy to listen to what it is that you have to say. If you have ways to mitigate it and address the concerns, we are willing to compromise as well. That's how crisis management communications should be done. Well, Mr. Anderson, who was a couple of days ago stating, yeah, we might need to consider the Alberta Sovereignty Act and the Notwithstanding Clause. Glad to see Calgary Council working with cowboys and other festival organizers on finding a path forward. Also agree with council decision to extend the shutdown time to 1 a.m. Combined with the new sheriffs from the province, this should solve a lot of the disorder issues. Makes sense. Now let's all enjoy the greatest outdoor show on earth. Oh my. How is tune changed? You have whiplash from that? We're going to have to invoke maybe the notwithstanding clause. Nothing is off the table. To I'm glad that this happened. This was the way to go. Good job, Mayor. And yes, Taviji, that jacket that the mayor had on, the paisley jacket, was pretty rocking, I have to admit. So yeah, there you go. All's well that apparently seems to end well, except for the people who organized Cowboy Thunder, who decided to cancel their event. It's just too bad that they just couldn't be honest about why it is that they canceled the event. Well, they decided to double down on that because I'm sure that is really going to help with them when they apply for the permit the following year. As that quote from The Devil Wears Prada 2 goes, "May the bridges I burn light my way." Oh, my word. Okay. I think I have one more for you, even though I'm slightly over time. But given that we didn't do 2 shows this week, well, what's a little overtime on this one? And let's see which one that was about here, because I don't remember off the top of my head. Yes, championing nuclear energy. Okay, we won't go too deep into this one because this one does require its own show because there's a lot in there. But just a few days ago, Canada's energy minister, can't remember his name off the top of my head. Yes, Tim Hodgson, made a big announcement with regard to Canada's ability to be an energy power in nuclear. Says here, according to Nick Murray of the Canadian Press, that Canada is looking to build up to 10 new nuclear reactors over the next 15 years, sell Canadian-made reactors to more countries, and double uranium exports, Energy Minister Tim Hodgson said Monday as he released a new national strategy for nuclear power. Hodgson called it a plan for a new civilian nuclear renaissance as the federal government looks to double the capacity of the country's electrical grid by 2050. And that's another way, by the way, kits and cubs, when Canada's looking to exchange its grid, and we're talking about the wind project in Nova Scotia. We're talking about building new nuclear. There was an announcement made yesterday about 3 major projects. One of them that would be in Northern Ontario as a storage facility for nuclear waste, given the amount of nuclear that we do produce and that we are going to be producing going forward. All of these things, again, are low carbon, but it's not the low carbon aspect necessarily that is being sold first, right? When we're talking about electrification, we're talking about the competitive economic advantage that comes from electrification rather than remaining reliant on fossil fuels. We're talking about the economic aspects, and the green aspects just sort of get embedded in and they get a mention, but they don't get pumped up, which is one of the things I suggested that this government was probably going to need to do to move forward and not open itself up to attack by being so outwardly green. But all that element is always built into every project. if you look at it and if you're paying attention. Quote, if our goal is to double our grid and build a low-carbon economy in less than 25 years, there's no credible plan to do that without nuclear energy and the clean, reliable baseload power it provides, Hodgson told a news conference in Newmarket, Ontario. There's no credible plan for Canada to become an energy superpower if we choose not to build upon one of the strongest energy advantages we have. The strategy calls for construction to start on 2 new large-scale reactors by 2035, for 5 more to be planned or under development by 2040, and for at least 1 reactor to be under construction outside Ontario by 2035. It also calls for Canadian-made micro-reactor to be finalized by 2035 and deployed to a remote community by the late 2030s. Taking questions from reporters in Vancouver ahead of the announcement, Conservative leader Pierre Poilièvre said he wasn't sold on the plan. Quote, an announcement will not build anything, he said. Yeah, but you're not going to build anything without first making an announcement either, Pierre. Quote, and this is the problem we've had with the Carney Liberals, is their promises are being reported on as results, and so far there have been no results. The result is the fact that we have a strategy. Not just a promise, but a promise that has been taken and passed through a first stage of work to come up with an actual plan. Right now, Canada has 4 nuclear power plants, 3 in Ontario and 1 in New Brunswick, which generate about 15% of Canada's electricity. A new proposed facility at the existing nuclear plant in Darlington, Ontario, would see the first small modular reactor in the G7, capable of producing up to 300 megawatts per unit. Saskatchewan is also looking at the potential to bring small nuclear reactors online by mid-2030s. The energy deal between Ottawa and Alberta also committed to collaborating on developing a strategy to build a nuclear power plant. Officials from Natural Resources Canada told reporters in a background briefing that construction of the reactors outlined in the new national strategy could cost more than $100 billion. That strategy does not say how Canada would pay for them, though an official pointed to the Canadian Infrastructure Bank and the Canada Growth Fund as potential funding sources. Also part of this plan is that a lot of these investments are scaled throughout the 10 years so that $100 billion is extended over that period of time. It doesn't have to come out of everybody's pocket at once. And I heard the minister saying something like, because these projects, nuclear, have a huge upfront cost, but they survive for 80 to 90 years, and the costs after construction are relatively low, and the energy that it produces is relatively inexpensive, that it's a good idea to span the original cost over the entire lives of the plant, if possible, or at least over the life of the plan, to make sure that a project that's going to benefit multiple generations doesn't have to be covered by just the current one. Hodgson said the strategy would double the 90,000 jobs in Canada's nuclear sector over the coming decades. The plan also looks to expand sales of CANDU reactors to new export markets. It says the government wants to break into at least 4 new international markets by 2040 and engage 6 to 10 new nuclear entrant markets over a 15-year horizon, cementing Canada as their partner of choice. 30 CANDU reactors currently operate around the world, including in South Korea, China, India, Argentina, Pakistan, and Romania, and there are plans to build 2 more. The document says Prime Minister Mark Carney was not shown the strategy, and government officials said he had no role in developing it due to the ethics screen he has in place. So not only are we talking about energy for ourselves, particularly since we want to get into the data center game, and we need energy that is clean and renewable, that probably and hopefully doesn't take energy away from other businesses or ourselves. So this is also part of it. But here, we're also noting here that the ethics screen that Pierre Poilièvre keeps on claiming somehow doesn't exist, and that Pierre keeps on claiming he knows what's behind it. He doesn't. Actually is applying here. Carney had stock options and deferred shares. Sorry, let's try that again. Carney had stock options and deferred shares in both Brookfield Corporation and Brookfield Asset Management that were put into a blind trust after he became Prime Minister. CANDU competes with the reactor model co-owned by Brookfield. The move to sell CANDU to new markets is an attempt to establish Canada as a reliable uranium export partner and to use nuclear energy as a geopolitical lever. It also has an intellectual property element that we are going to be exporting as well. Quote, reactor exports are not transactional. They establish multi-decade partnerships, creating durable geopolitical and commercial relationships that advance Canada's broader foreign policy interests, the strategy says. As Canada works to diversify its trading relationships and strengthen ties with middle powers, CANDU can be a central instrument of that strategy. If Ottawa fails to sell more CANDU reactors worldwide, the strategy suggests Canada look into boosting domestic uranium enrichment to fuel other reactors. Unlike most other nuclear reactors, CANDU reactors don't require enriched uranium. Ottawa says Western allies are turning away from Russia, one of the world's key suppliers of enriched uranium. Earlier this year, the government launched a discussion paper which proposed having impact assessments for nuclear projects being handed over to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission from the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada. The strategy on Monday reaffirmed that proposal, however, it has not been implemented while the government consults on it. The consultation period was extended last month after pushback from environment and Indigenous groups. Quote, our approach is to repeal the anti-development laws, depoliticize nuclear... Poilièvre said, our approach is to repeal the anti-development laws, depoliticize... I'm having trouble with that word. One more time. Our approach is to repeal the anti-development laws, depoliticize the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, stop the liberal obstacles so that we can actually produce more affordable and abundant electricity and other forms of energy across the country, Poilièvre said. But the focus has to be on results, not yet more promises and illusions. He opposes renewables, says absolutely nothing as Alberta guts the renewable sector, even though he's an MP for the region. So, how about nuclear? Well, no, because now the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission apparently is politicized. We are to believe. Have you ever heard of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission making an intervention on anything in the past 15 years? Top of mind. Yes, but it's so politicized. And the focus has to be on results, not yet more promises and illusions, says the guy that keeps on championing bitumen pipelines, even though China has already reached peak oil. China's reliance on oil, they've actually decreased the amount of oil, I believe, that they've used by 5% over the last year or so. And it's planning to go down. China already on its own, from solar and wind, those types of renewables can produce enough energy to power close to 2.6 billion homes. They're measuring in terawatts at the moment, not kilowatts or megawatts, terawatts, how much they can produce. It's as the case, if you're following energy media and Markham Hislop, for more oil, more gas pipelines becomes less and less obvious. As that is happening, Pierre saying the focus has to be on results, not more promises and illusions, as he is promising that all you need to do is get government out of the way. Just eliminate all the rules and all the citizen protections. And just let the energy builders do what they will. And claiming that he would be able to get these done, especially in areas where there are Indigenous populations who have a say, where there's a duty to consult. But the focus has to be on results, not yet more promises and illusions. From the man, from the party, who promised a pipeline west and didn't get a single inch of pipe laid towards Tidewater. Again, not serious. And his first reaction, I'm not sold on this. No. Kids are going hungry. How about a school food program? No. People can't afford homes. How about a housing accelerator fund? Hey, MPs from my party, don't go demanding any funds from that for your region. The price of gas is too expensive. Well, how about a fund to help with public transit in regions? MPs, don't go demanding any money from that fund either. It makes the Liberals look good. Your constituents need to go without. We need to increase baseload power. How about nuclear? Not sold on that. Oh, the days of John A. MacDonald. Wow, when we could build trains. How about high-speed rail? Oh, no, 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 not that. We need to celebrate Canada. Okay, let's celebrate Arab Canadians who have been here since 1882. No, no, we can't have that. No, no, too many ethnic groups. Not enough days on the calendar. It's too burdensome. No. These guys. Anyway, Kits and Cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. And when you do, if you can include a little bit of yourself saying why it is that our content resonates with you, that helps because you are influencers in your own circle, and that will probably lead people to be more likely to click on our links. So please share the content wherever and whenever you can. Thank you so much for doing that. If you would like to help us in other ways, you can scan this QR code, which will bring you to our YouTube page if you're not already there, where you can smash with our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching live, remember, if you smash now, you don't have to remember to do it before you leave. So please go away, smash, don't go away, go on ahead and smash with our buttons. Don't go away. Please don't go away. We like you right here. So that helps us a lot. And we thank you so much for that. And if you would like to support us in other ways, Kits and Cubs, if you scan this QR code, it will bring you to the Emergency Hydration Fund at the Beaver Lodge, where you can support the show with a financial contribution if you think that what we do resonates with you and deserves your support. So thank you very much for that. Kids and Cubs, I do have to cut the intro short today because I just looked at the time and I'm supposed to be somewhere in 1 minute that I cannot possibly get to because I cannot teleport. So I am just going to say, because democracy is something that you do, get involved in your communities, whatever way you can, particularly if there is anything democratic like a protest or a race for a seat or something like that going on. Support your local candidate, maybe consider running yourself, all that good stuff, or just go and support a community that you believe in that needs support and you need to just stand shoulder to shoulder with them. So that's all I will have. Team Canada also just wanted to mention very briefly did not win against Switzerland, but that may have worked out because Team South Africa upset Team South Korea yesterday and ended up second in their division. And in the first round of the playoffs, Team Canada, ranked 30th, will be playing Team South Africa, ranked 60th. So there is a good chance that we might be able to get to the next round, despite not finishing first in our pool. So it was an exciting game. Team Canada almost got the tie near the end with a great finish in those last 10 or 15 minutes, but it was not to be. However, the fight's not over. The fight's not over. We just keep on going. All right? That's all I got for you. Amour et bisous, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone. Oh, I forgot to ask, can I please have some audience participation in having you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, and 3. Ah, yes, I heard you. There was a little cowboy in that, too. I like it. Here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.